November is recognized as Native American History Month. It is a time to celebrate the beauty of indigenous cultures, the positive significance the culture has made in America, and also to remember the horror of the past and the current mistreatment of their communities as they struggle for recognition, equality, and peace. While we should honor their culture and every day of the year, Tyrrell County Public Library has decided to highlight a couple of Native American dishes. While it was challenging to find recipes that were as close to the time of the first Thanksgiving for our local area, without the fancy ingredients that we have today, I hope I've done it justice. But before I jump into the cooking, let's look at a couple of facts. On August 3rd, 1990, the month of November was recognized by former President George H.W. Bush as Native American Heritage Month. There are over 600 tribes in the United States. Each tribe has its own unique culture, language, food, dance, songs, stories, and beliefs. Each nation has its own sovereignty. North Carolina is home to 8 tribes and is the home to the largest Native American population east of the Mississippi River. Now here's a list of them. I don't want to do them injustice by mispronouncing their names. On November 16, 2020, the U.S. House of Representatives unanimously approved the Lumbee Recognition Act that would give the Lumbee Nation federal recognition as a tribe. The Lumbee Nation has sought this full recognition since the 1800s. That is a long time to not be recognized when you were on this land before the colonists arrived. Speaking of that, let's acknowledge the land we are living on. Learning which native land you are on weaves indigenous contributions to the American story. It helps to prevent and undo harmful stereotypes and recognizes that a native history started long before 1492. It serves to tell the full historical narrative that indigenous people are very much still here and will be here in the future for many generations to come. As we begin to dissect the colony legacy we have been taught, it becomes evident that indigenous narrative is either inaccurate or left out of history. This leaves collateral damage for them as they are constantly fighting for their existence and representation among society and the country's history as well as their own, and part of it played in the building of this country. Decolonizing our story is a way to reclaim their culture and identity. It's a way for non-Indigenous allies to support and celebrate Native people. Thanksgiving for many Indigenous people is their day of mourning. During this month, take the time to recognize people, culture, traditions, crafts, music that existed in the United States before it became what we know it is today. Visit a museum with your family, like Roanoke Island's Festival Park in Manio, or Frisco Native American Museum. Road trip to Cherokee Land and visit their museum near the North Carolina-Tennessee border. Research a tribe in your area and learn one new thing about them. Maybe learn a few words in their language. Try a recipe of theirs. Hey, speaking of that, let's get cooking. For our no-fry fry bread, the ingredients you will need are 4 cups of unbleached or whole wheat flour or spelt flour, extra flour for kneading, 2 tablespoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1.5 cups of warm water. For our native squash stew, the ingredients you will need are 3 tablespoons of oil, 2 medium-size to large-size onions chopped, 9 to 10 cups of winter squash, peeled and cut into 2-inch cubes, 4 garlic cloves, finely chopped, 1 red bell pepper, roasted, peeled, and chopped, 4 to 6 fresh mild green chilies, roasted and peeled and chopped, or 1 to 2 small cans of mild chilies chopped, 2 or 3 ears of corn, scraped, or 1 can of niblet-style corn, 2 to 3 teaspoons of ground cumin, and 1 can of pinto beans. For our traditional wosapi, our ingredients are 4 to 5 cups of fresh berries, buffalo berries, pitted choke cherries, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, or strawberries, 1/2 cup of water, honey, cornstarch. We're going to start by working on the dough for our fry bread. Okay, so here in my medium bowl, I have put 4 cups of wheat flour. I actually chose spelt flour because it will not upset my family's stomach. I'm gonna have some extra flour, spelt flour, I'm gonna put on here right now so I can start the kneading process because it's gonna need some time to rise. So I'm just throwing some down on here and spreading it around. Okay, so 4 cups of whole wheat flour, 2 tablespoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, and we are now going to pour 1.5 cups of warm water into here. Okay, now the fun begins. I don't feel like sticking my hands in there right off the bat, so I am going to start with the spoon. Now, this is your typical Native American fry bread. And it brings back like a lot of memories for the indigenous people because we have taken a lot from them and they're trying to get back to their normal fare of food. Okay, so now I'm kneading, just so you can see. I'm getting my hand in there because a lot of the water has been absorbed. And I am kneading this. Now I'm gonna pull it out once I have it all incorporated in here and put it on this baking mat with the flour. All right, there we go. Let's dump that in the sink. And here we go. Now you're gonna knead this for about 3 minutes. Okay, and all we're doing is pushing it down with the heels of our hands and folding it over. We're going to do this for about 4 minutes. This is your arm workout for the day. Imagine doing this on a stone out in the woods or out in a field, which is the way they used to do it. And most of their stuff was with either cattail flour or corn flour. I think white flour that was introduced by the white man was a big shock to their system when they used more stuff that was less processed from nature. So now we're going to make it smooth and round. And we're going to place it in a bowl. We're going to cover this for 30 minutes and let it rise. Okay, so we have our flatbread that has been sitting, rising, and we're going to stretch it out, and then we're going to fry it up in our cast iron skillet. And I'm thinking that the berries would taste really great with this, and this will also taste good in our stew if we want to dip it.
Now let's start on our native squash stew.
So we're going to do 3 tablespoons of oil. You're going to turn on the flame to medium. And we're going to toss in our 2 cups of chopped onions. And we're going to cook them until they are translucent, which means that they're just light. They're not as white, and for me, I think they have more flavor when you start to brown them. Handy dandy stir. Let's coat them in the oil really good. And we're going to sweat them out and let them do their thing. And these are starting to brown, so we're getting there now. And they're starting to lighten. They're not as white as they were, and that's what we want. Okay, so now we have our onions that are translucent and they're just starting to brown. And we are going to add in our 9 cups, it's actually like 9.5 cups of butternut squash. Oops, got my finger on the pot there. Then we are going to put in our garlic. Get a spoon for this. Garlic is in, then our corn. Next going in is the roasted peppers. And I'm actually doing really good. Nothing has come out of the pot yet and shot off to the side because that is the norm for me. We are gonna do some chilies and then 3 cups of water. So I've got 2 cups in here. So I'm gonna add those in. And then I have 1 in a measuring cup. Sizzle, sizzle. I'm gonna give this a stir and incorporate everything in. Whoops, see, we had a jumper. Always a jumper. Okay, now the recipe calls for 2 to 3 teaspoons of cumin. And a lot of people aren't crazy about cumin. I love it. So I would say start with 2, and from there, if you feel that it needs more, add more in. So I'm gonna do 2 because I'm actually sharing this with a coworker, and I don't know how he's gonna feel about all the cumin, but we're gonna taste it a little ways down the road, and if he's cool with it, then we're gonna add another 1 in. So now we need some salt and pepper. Now you guys saw this pepper in the start of the video, but I like to keep like a little jar of pepper up at my thing here because then I can just not have to twist it. I do that, and then my salt shaker. That looks about good for flavoring. I'm gonna stir this up again, and then I'm gonna put the lid on, and I'm gonna bring this up to a boil, and then I'm going to reduce it. This butternut squash will end up breaking down and become part of the soup. All right, there we go. Everything's in. Off, off, off. All right, let's bring it up in temperature, and we'll drop the lid on.
While that stews, let's start on our traditional wosapi.
We have 4 cups of berries in here. I use strawberries, blueberries, and raspberries. And I rinse them and I put them in a bowl, and now I'm gonna mash them up. Not a whole heck of a lot. I want, when I put them in the pot with some water, I want that to do the job, but I'm just getting it started. Now, Native Americans typically use chokeberries, which I can't get my hands on. So I decided to go with just a berry mixture. You can use whatever berries you want, but I decided to go with these. We're going to transfer this over to a pot. And I am going to add a half a cup of water to this, and I am going to turn up the flame. Alright, just want to make sure the water gets on everything. We don't want the fruit to burn, so we try to stir this on a regular basis. Everything's submerged. Okay, we're good. We're going to get this heated up.
Our fruits have started to break down, so let's check up on our stew.
Wish you could smell this. I like mine a little soupy, not so chunky, so I'm mashing some of this butternut squash and acorn squash since it is softer now. What I'm going to do now, and this does not call for it in the recipe, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some beans to it. Now, they had pinto beans back then. I just opened up a can and I'm flipping it in. If I had put it in ahead of time, these would have broken down. But if I'm putting them in now like this, then what's going to end up happening is it's just going to heat through. And mixing it up. So all those big chunks of squash just broke down. We're going to let that sit. All right, we want to thicken up the jam. A lot of them ate this as just soup, but we're going to try and spread it on stuff, so we are going to thicken it up a little bit. So it has been cooking for a while. As you can see, it is all broken down. There's no more big chunks of strawberries in there. There's a little bit of blueberries, or maybe just the blueberry skins. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a teaspoon of cornstarch and put it in a bowl, and then we're gonna add some cold water. And it's hard to say how much. You just kind of wanna get it to where it's broken down, looking like this. And then we're gonna add this into the berries to thicken them up. Now, again, I don't know if they had cornstarch back then. I'm really trying to keep this as close to what they would be doing, but I would like it a little bit thicker. So I am going to pour this in, and I'm gonna mix it up. And then we're gonna let this sit for a little bit, and we are gonna fry up our fry bread. So I'm just gonna pour a little bit of oil into my cast iron skillet, and I'm gonna turn it on. Move my pan down, and I'm gonna heat that up. Let the sizzle begin. You can see it bubbling all around the outside there. So it's starting to fry up. Can you see? Do one at a time. So we're going to put a new one in. You can see the difference between when we put the other one in, it was the same size, and you're seeing it starting to puff up. We want it to brown a little. It's kind of hard to see because we're using the spelt flour or whole wheat flour, but you'll start to see it brown. Let's see how this side's doing. There we go. See the brownness? And this one's starting to puff up now. I'll flip that one over. Get some oil on both sides. Okay, take that one out. I'm shaking off as much oil as possible before I drop it over here. We're going to keep them warm in this towel till we're ready to sit down.
I think our stew is ready. Almost time to eat.
This house smells amazing. So the beans were in there enough to heat up, and now we are going to ladle some into a bowl, and we're going to put it on a plate with a piece of fry bread. Bon appetit!
But what about our wosapee?
So here's our fry bread, and we have the berry sauce. I did do the corn syrup, cornstarch slurry to thicken it up. And Native Americans, we either have this as soup or they would put it on their fry bread. So we thought we would give it a try and pour some on and eat it that way.
Thanks for cooking with us.
Please stop into Tyrrell County Public Library and grab a children's book to start the dialogue with your family. Here are some of the ones that portray their real story, their history. Grab a book for yourself to learn about the people who lived on this land before our ancestors dropped their own roots. Try a new food dish. I'm sure glad I did. It tasted fabulous, and my family has asked for it to stay in the rotation. Thank you for watching Tyrrell County Public Library's YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe to this and our Facebook page to keep up to date on what we are doing to support our community.